Today we are going to be talking all about Swiss culture shocks. For those of you who are new here, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yvette. If you haven't watched part 1, I'm gonna link the video over here. Now, approaching 2 years of living in Switzerland, I am so excited to share with you even more story times and all of the culture shocks that have forever altered my brain chemistry. So let's get right into it. Sometimes I don't know how businesses in Switzerland could sustain because their return policy is just so amazing. So the other day, my vacuum cleaner broke down. It's been 1.5 years since I've bought it, so it is decent time that I buy a new one. I was just about to do that when my partner mentioned that we have a 2 years warranty on this and we could try returning it, and I was like, huh? I don't think that's possible, and I feel really paiseh to do it because I must have done something wrong to spoil it, or I chuck it up to normal wear and tear. There's literally no way they are gonna accept it. But he said, you never know if we never try, so we headed down to Conforama where we bought it, and I was 90% sure that we were never gonna get the warranty, but we freaking did. I was so shocked, like how is this even possible? It's crazy. In Singapore, you could never get away with any return because they're gonna ask you so many questions like, what did you do? You must have done something to spoil it, and sorry, we are not able to reimburse you, blah blah blah. But here in Switzerland, it's literally like no questions asked. Okay, so the vacuum doesn't work anymore. You have the original receipt, is within the warranty date. We are gonna exchange it for you. Because I bought this vacuum 1.5 years ago, they no longer have the same exact model. So what they did was they issued me a gift card of the same value that I bought it at. And on the same day, I picked out a new vacuum which cost the same. And at the checkout, they accepted the gift card and they even issued me another 2 years warranty for this new vacuum. Like, are you kidding me? I get a brand new vacuum at zero cost and you are giving me another 2 years of warranty? That is just so freaking insane. Speaking of business sustainability in Switzerland, I moved into this apartment complex last year in January, and there's this cafe underneath my block that I have never seen open for business for the last 2 years that I've been living here, and I just can't help but wonder, how are they sustaining the rental for that unit if they don't operate at all? And as we all know, rent is not cheap in Switzerland. So how are businesses sustaining in Switzerland? Please let me know in the comments if you know anything because it just boggles my mind. As a kid, I hated wearing school uniforms. I hated it so much that when I graduated secondary school and had the choice to choose between JC and Polytechnic, I chose to go to Poly for the sole fact that I can wear whatever I want to school. I just simply hated the fact that I have to wear the same thing as everyone else. As far as I can remember, all kids in Singapore have to wear school uniforms since we are as young as 3 years old when we enroll in kindergarten. In Switzerland though, school uniforms are not a thing here. When I first saw kindergarten kids on their daily walks or primary school kids that are out playing during their lunch break, I remember that something felt off to me, but I could never really put my finger to it. Until I watched this French movie called Casse-tête chinois. It's a French trilogy series and I love it. I've been watching French films lately to improve my French. Anyways, I digress. So the main character of this movie was throwing a huge fit with his ex-wife because his ex-wife sent their kids to school. I'm not sure if it's a private or a public school, but he saw his kids wearing uniform and he just lost it. And that's when it all clicked for me. Oh yeah, come to think of it, that's what felt off with the kids. The school uniform. But this is a pleasant culture shock. I really hated uniforms, so to think that my future kids, if I ever have one, not having to wear them makes me happy. For those of you who have started working, paying bills and taxes are a part and parcel of adulting life. It's pretty much the same anywhere else in the world where you declare your income and pay taxes accordingly. Nothing new, right? But in Switzerland, there's just one thing that I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Every household is obligated to pay TV and radio tax. Why? We are paying 335 francs for something that we don't even use. We don't even have a TV or radio in our apartment. I mean, if I actively consume these medias, I'll be more than willing to pay for it. But in this day and age, who even watches television and listens to radio when we have internet and computers? Wait, I think my grandparents still do. Okay, I'm sorry, I take that back. But logically speaking, isn't it only fair to tax those who actually uses them? 335 francs is almost a month of groceries for me. On the other hand, if I think about it as paying so that my grandparents could enjoy their shows, I think I don't feel so miserable paying for it anymore. This is definitely a huge culture shock for me. In Switzerland, every building has a shared laundry area with a washing machine and a dryer. This comes as a shock for me because back in Singapore, every household has their own washing machine and we don't share them with our neighbors. While I'm not used to sharing washing machine, I do think that is a plus because my apartment is small. There's hardly any space for a washing machine and a dryer that I use once a week. I imagine it also saves water and costs for a shared laundry area. Personally, for me, my building doesn't have this, but I've heard that other apartment complexes have a strict schedule. Every resident has a designated time slot for them to do their laundry each week, which I imagine could be a hassle. What if you're not free on your allocated slot? Like, do you have to wait another week to do your laundry? It can be pretty troublesome. For my building though, we could use it anytime we want as long as nobody else is using it. I mean, you can easily talk it out with your neighbors if you guys happen to be doing laundry at the same time. Communication is key, right? To be considerate of my neighbors, I do my laundry on weekdays and leave the weekends for those who have to work during the week. In Singapore, I rarely carry cash around me, even credit cards, because you could easily pay with your phone using cashless payments like Google Pay, Apple Pay, PayNow, etc. However, in Switzerland, it's still pretty much a cash-based society where the Swiss prefers to pay using cash despite the rise in payment apps. According to a study done in February this year, around 92% of companies who operate face-to-face business accepts cash, while just 59% accepts payment apps such as Twint, which is a bank transfer that works like PayNow. I've learned my lesson the hard way as usual. So I was having coffee with a friend in Old Town, and when it came to the bill, they didn't accept card payments. None of us have cash with us. I had to walk all the way back to city centre just to get to the nearest ATM to withdraw cash. It took me half an hour for a trip to and fro just to get cash for payment. So now I would always carry small amounts of cash with me when I head out, and if you're visiting Switzerland, you should too. One of the biggest misconceptions I've heard about Switzerland is that healthcare is free. Even my own parents told me that, and I'm like, no, that is not true. I don't know who has been spreading lies on the internet, but there's no such thing as free healthcare here. Switzerland's healthcare is known to be one of the best in the world, but it also comes at a price. Naturally, health insurance is mandatory and it is essential, so it doesn't come as a surprise for me. What shocked me the most, however, was the insurance agent. So, to give you a little context, in Singapore, there's a stigma surrounding insurance and their agents because many people are in it for the money, as in the high commissions from selling insurance policies. If you have a friend who got into this industry after decades of not contacting you, they would suddenly approach you and call you non-stop to try to sell you insurance policies. They are well known for being pushy and hard selling, so naturally you can see why there's a negative notion to it. I've always felt so stressed during these insurance meetups because I'm a people pleaser. I can't say no to people, and even when I know that I'm not gonna buy new insurance, I still agreed to meet up with these so-called old friends just to listen to their pitch and try to come up with an excuse to reject them, like, oh, my mom handles my insurance. So when I bought my insurance in Switzerland, I was shocked. at how chill the agent was. We went to her office and she just recommended us the most basic insurance that we need. She was not pushy. There was no hard selling of any sort. It was actually me that started asking the agent more questions. Oh, is there a better insurance with more coverage and benefits? I wouldn't mind paying more on my monthly premium. So you can imagine that it's a very different experience for me. And my insurance agent, she follows up with me like once a year. Once a year. There's no spamming phone calls every month to get you to upgrade your insurance plan. Once a year follow-up. Isn't that crazy? One thing I've never done in Singapore is this. The drivers in Switzerland always stop for you. Like I can just close my eyes and step on the crosswalks knowing that Swiss drivers would stop for me. From a mile ahead, they could already sense that you are ready to cross and they would always stop for you even before you start crossing. And this is a gesture that I've learned upon arriving here in Switzerland. Or some people would just mouth mercy when you let them pass. This is something new to me because in Singapore, we were taught to look repeatedly from left to right to right to left before crossing a road and to never assume that a driver has seen you. It's your responsibility to save yourself. So you could say, yeah, this is a pleasant culture shock, I would say. Another thing that I've noticed at the crosswalks, when you're at a traffic light, no matter how empty the streets are, the Swiss will not jaywalk. They will wait for the green light. I mean, rule abiding is something so ingrained in Singapore, but even more so in Switzerland, that oftentimes when I'm tempted to jaywalk, but when the people beside me are not moving an inch, I feel like I'm doing something terrible. Like, I don't think that it's right for me to be the first one to jaywalk, but if there's someone who does, I will follow. Taking a taxi in Singapore, or in Asia in fact, is a very common thing. It is inexpensive, convenient, and you can get to your destination in an air-conditioned car so you don't have to suffer from the sweltering heat. In Switzerland, taxis are insanely expensive. This brings me to a story time when I took a taxi for the first and most probably my last time because of how expensive it costs. In summer, one of my favorite things to do is bike riding. As a pillion, of course, because I don't have a license. I leave the biking to the boys and I just sit back and enjoy the view. It's especially fun when you do it with a group of friends. So this particular bike trip, there's me, Adrian, Kenny. It was a scenic 2-day 1-night biking trip where we decided to camp overnight somewhere, and it is a pretty amazing trip where we got to go Grindelwald and Interlaken for the very first time. On our way back home, however, we had a little accident. Mountain roads are pretty windy, and at a particular turn, Kenny lost control of his bike and he fell. Adrian, following behind him, tried to swerve to avoid hitting him, and as a result, I got flung out of the bike. I remember myself landing with a thud and rolling a couple of times on the ground. And because we were carrying huge backpacks containing our camp stuff, food and water, the weight of that backpack actually twisted my back. I landed like that. At that point, filled with adrenaline, I guess, all of us got up immediately and checked that everybody was okay before we continued to make our way back home. It was at least another 1 hour back to Zurich. However, the longer I sat on that bike, I started feeling this sharp pain along my back and my legs that I could barely sit up straight on the bike, and I decided that I have to go to the hospital. We stopped in the middle of nowhere and contemplated our options. The closest hospital was Lucerne Cantonal Hospital, and calling an ambulance meant that we would have to pay between 700 francs to 2,100 francs. So we decided to call a cab instead. As we got on the taxi, I had my eyes glued onto the meter. It was jumping furiously at an insane speed. It's like we were charged based on every second that we were on that cab. And that cab ride eventually amounted to about 80 francs for what seemed like a 15 minutes ride to the hospital. And that's freaking insane. I have never paid 120 SGD for a cab ride in my entire life. In Singapore, going from one end to another end would probably cost you like what, max $40? But anyways, long story short, I got checked by the doctors. Thankfully, I had no broken bones. I most likely have a pulled muscle on my lower back that made me unable to lift my legs or walk without sending a sharp pain up my back. I was prescribed painkillers and was discharged. So while the brothers went back to got the bikes, I took the train from Lucerne back to Zurich and we met there. Voila, that's the end of the story. This was also the same incident where I had to cover the full 1,000 francs for my doctor's visit because I didn't have my health insurance yet back then. What a shit show. In Chinese religion, Buddha statues are a form of worship, and we worship these statues as though they are the deities themselves. So I was pretty shocked when I saw that Buddha statues were being used as backyard decorations in Switzerland. I mean, you don't have to be a Buddhist to own a statue of him, but in my religion, to have a Buddha statue at home means that you have to make offerings and burn incense on a daily basis. It's a pretty big deal and it just doesn't quite sit right with me knowing that people are actually buying this for pure decoration. I do hope that the people who buy it follow the general guidelines out of respect for what his image represents. In Singapore, drugs are absolutely banned and drug trafficking is an extremely serious offence that warrants the death penalty. It has been deeply ingrained in all Singaporeans with the Say No to Drugs campaigns when we were kids. In Switzerland though, I was really shocked to see cannabis being sold readily everywhere and in every form that you can imagine, in drinks, skincare, in therapeutic oils for cats and dogs, etc. Personally, I do not smoke at all and there's this vivid smell of CBD that makes me physically want to gag. And let me give you a huge warning. All Singaporeans or Singapore PRs who are found to consume illegal drugs, even outside Singapore, can face a penalty of imprisonment of up to 10 years and a fine not exceeding $20,000 or both. So if you are a Singaporean travelling to Switzerland, be very careful not to accidentally consume these drinks that contain CBD. Stay far, far away from it. So this marks the end of this video. All of the above are based on my experiences living in Switzerland as a Singaporean expat for 2 years now. I hope you found this video helpful, interesting, or entertaining even. Be sure to subscribe for more. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!